Oh, watch this. All right, watch this. Get ready. Here we go. Hit him with that. Oh, what the fuck? What's going on, boys? Tricks Ridiculous back with another video, and this time, as promised, we're going over an absolute monster. This is my support crowd control Hulk build in progress. Hulk, I feel, has gotten a bad rap from a lot of players in the community, but I do think most people may not be playing him optimally. This is not by any means a DPS build at all, but rather this is a taunting, tanking, stunning, and shrinking machine that can generate tons of heroic orbs better than anybody and provide incredible support to the team from multiple different angles. I understand that not being a DPS monster may turn some players off of the idea of playing this build, but I promise you your team will be thanking you. And even as a solo player, you will still be able to clear all content with this build. I'll admit it's not as brainlessly overpowered as my Captain America build, so you do have to manage your cooldowns and manage your other abilities and play smart. But the build really excels playing with other human team members, as you regularly produce more heroic orbs than you can possibly use. So spreading the love to other team members will really pump up a team to the next level. And to be honest, we really are in a heroic orb meta right now. Honestly, any way to get back heroic abilities or generate heroic orbs seems to be the best possible choice on pretty much any character at the moment. So with that out of the way, if you like Marvel's Avengers and you want to see more build guides and other high-level tips, be sure to subscribe and join me on Twitch and in my Discord as well. Links in the description. But without further ado, I will show off the skill tree for this build. Now, I will admit up front, at the time of this recording, my Hulk is not geared optimally for this build, but I will go through more optimized gear pieces in a follow-up video. Unfortunately, my Hulk is currently under the ongoing gear glitch. After about 4 hours of streaming yesterday in various missions, all on challenge 3 or 4, way higher than my current power level, I didn't get a single piece of gear to drop that was higher than whatever my slotted item is. So a little annoying, kind of tough to make actual power progress on them right now. So that's why this is a build in progress, but I can still talk about the actual fundamentals that really make this build work. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, boys, so here we are on the skill tree for Hulk. Now obviously I'm not going to go over the primary tree because once you're level 50 you do get all skills in that tree, but I'm just going to go over the specialty and mastery options that I've picked that I think really make this build work, and we'll kind of go through why I chose the choices I did and what other customization options you could actually go with if you so choose. If you want to take a screenshot, now's the time. Go ahead and just grab this, pick this skill for skill, and you'll have an absolute beast. I'll click over to the mastery tree as well so you can get a look at that. Again, go ahead and take a screenshot so you can copy this skill for skill. But with that out of the way, let's get right into it. So it's really the support heroic ability that really makes this build tick. If you don't know the Bone Shaker, when you activate, it taunts all nearby enemies, drawing their attention away from other targets. It also breaks everyone's block who is affected by this and significantly staggers everybody. What we're going with on this is Rampaging Bone Shaker. Defeating 5 enemies while Bone Shaker is active extends its duration by 5 seconds. So this, there's really no good option other than this one. It's not super important to the build, but basically when we go in, in a particular fight, we activate our Bone Shaker and then we activate our Thunderclap. We're most likely going to be clearing most of the room with that already, at least, all of the kind of general enemies. You can get this to proc, twice, even 3 times, adding 10 or 15 seconds to your Bone Shaker, and it really just helps you kind of with the rest of the fight. You really will just stay in that armored mode for quite a while. These other 2 abilities, restoring all willpower, that's not really necessary with Hulk, and then refilling your intrinsic rage meter, again, not super necessary. You're probably going to have that stuff anyway. And then on the right-hand side, we're going with Savage Heroism. This is really the keystone skill that really makes this build overpowered. Defeating enemies who are taunted by Bone Shaker cause them to drop heroic orbs. Now, with this, just a little caveat here from my testing, it does have to actually be you specifically that kills the enemy. So if you taunt the entire room, and then another Avenger, one of your teammates comes in and kills a bunch of enemies, none of those enemies who were taunted will drop heroic orbs. Hulk does have to actually deal the final blow. So just something to think about, but I assure you it's not going to matter much. This ability alone will drop us so many heroic orbs, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous. Coming over to our assault heroic ability, so the stranglehold, if you don't know what this does, you basically dash forward, grab an enemy on the way, and then slam them into the ground, doing extreme damage to them, but also good damage to everyone in the surrounding area. So with this, we use heroic destruction. 50% chance defeating an enemy will generate a heroic orb. Obviously, that kind of speaks for itself. When we do kill someone with this, we will get a heroic orb. So just another way to get our heroics back. And then right over here, double strangle on the second one grants an additional charge of the stranglehold ability. So pretty straightforward. Obviously, because we're picking up so many heroic orbs, having that extra stranglehold charge really does come in handy, being able to activate it twice. And you'll notice just through some of the passive skills, restores 60% of maximum willpower with stranglehold, and then this one grants up to 100% rage bonus based on the amount of damage. When it says amount of damage, honestly, I don't know what that means, because unless you miss completely, every time I use stranglehold, my health and my rage meter both go directly to the top. I've never had it not go directly to the top. So the way I see it, when you activate this ability, you're getting full health and full rage, and you have 2 charges of it, so that's quite nice. What this will also do, and this will be relevant when we get to some future skills, but this does actually perform takedowns on larger enemies, so that includes adaptoids, exosuits, and dreadbots. So all 3 of those enemies, if you stranglehold and you don't already grab an enemy, a smaller enemy, if you do it right at them or right in their face, it will actually trigger a takedown automatically on that enemy. And that will be useful for obviously skills that trigger takedowns. So important to note there. And then coming over to our ultimate heroic ability, so Thunderclap, I think you all know this one. Slam your hands together in a huge slap, massive shockwave, ton of damage to everyone in the vicinity. So what we're going with on this, I go with Epicenter just to increase that distance by 30%. I've tried all 3 of them extensively. Ground Zero is not very useful. The vacuum sounds nice, but honestly, anyone who would be drawn in from the vacuum is going to be in the blast radius anyway, and especially with that extra 30%. So I don't find this super necessary. And the gamma radiation zone is very underwhelming. The willpower regeneration is minuscule, 2% every second is basically nothing, and the damage that it inflicts on enemies, I personally don't find super valuable. It does build their gamma meter, but honestly, the actual tick damage is very low, so I'm not super impressed with that one. And then Fault Line, so you can use this one. This one is not bad. The only thing about this one, it does more damage and more stun damage, which is nice. But the only thing is it attacks directly in front of you. So like I said earlier, this is not a DPS build. This is really focused on kind of generating heroic orbs and really just hitting as many enemies as possible and killing enemies who are taunted, so they'll drop those heroic orbs. So with all of that said, I honestly think Epicenter is just the best bang for your buck, pun intended, and you'll probably kill the most enemies with this one. And coming over to the right hand side, so this one again pretty straightforward. 50% chance an enemy defeated with Thunderclap will drop a heroic orb. So again, when we're killing enemies, we're just looking to get more heroic orbs. As you saw in the opening clip to this video, really the wombo combo is to just come in, activate your Bone Shaker in a crowd of enemies, hopefully enemies that aren't shielded or anything like that, or really anyone who can die to a Bone Shaker, or excuse me, to a Thunderclap. you get them all taunted, you get them all, get right kind of in the center of them, and then go ahead and blast them away with that thunderclap. Any low kind of rank and file enemies, so any synthoids, any drones, any turrets, whatever, they're all going to die instantly to this. Some of the larger enemies, of course, won't die immediately, but that's fine. You'll still kill so many enemies if you do this in the right spots, that you'll be producing, you know, orbs not only from this savage heroism, but also from this as well. So there'll be orbs flying all over the screen for you to get your abilities back and for your teammates to get everything back as well. And this last ability here, these other abilities on this, really not super relevant. Regen packs you don't need. You actually have plenty of health. You're really not going to have to worry about that. And then the taunt, this one is actually not necessary. Don't be fooled by this taunt, or there is actually another taunt somewhere, as here it is, barbaric charge, stranglehold taunts nearby enemies. Don't be fooled by this taunt, because when you look at savage heroism, the enemies defeated who are taunted by Bone Shaker cause them to drop heroic orbs. So that actually does not apply to enemies taunted by these other abilities. They have to be taunted by the Bone Shaker ability. It's because it's part of this tree, so it doesn't count for any other various taunts that happen. So with that said, obviously not super relevant to have taunt abilities. All right, so moving along to the mastery tree. So again, take a screenshot if you want, but I'll go through each of the skills and kind of why I chose them. So for the first one, we're going with Vice Grip. Held enemies are protected from interruption, so you'll be able to kind of grab onto enemies and use them as weapons more easily. They're not going to just drop immediately when you get hit at first. I think this is a fantastic skill. It's definitely better than these other two skills in the tree here. We are going to be grabbing enemies pretty frequently, especially with you know, some of the gear options that we're going to pick and kind of spreading some PIM elemental damage. We're actually going to be able to grab quite a few more enemies than you might think. So being able to kind of use those enemies and bludgeon them around is a really good ability to have. It takes an enemy or two completely out of the fight, so your team doesn't even have to worry about them. And then, you know, using them for extremely powerful attacks is just all the sweeter. Coming over here, we use hard swings, so increased damage of impact of held enemies by 20%. You could also use enhanced grab. I don't think this is really necessary. I think it's pretty. It's usually pretty obvious when an enemy is grabbable. So I'm not really sure, you know, how useful that 15% is even going to be. And then this one, you could also go with slamming held enemies with heavy attacks has a chance to generate regen orbs. This can be pretty nice as well, because we are primarily going to be using heavy attacks with our slams. So, you know, having a chance to get a regen pack would be nice for a little more sustainability, but I don't think it's necessary. 15% does seem pretty low for that to proc, and just general, you know, 20% damage and impact, I think is a little more useful. Moving over to the takedown mastery, I don't think I even need to explain this one. Performing a takedown spawns a heroic orb. You should be using this on all of your heroes. In our case with Hulk, you know, if we're playing with a team, obviously you'll be kind of fighting over takedowns with other team members, so don't worry too much about that specifically. But what this also helps with is when you come over to your Assault Heroic, when you use your Stranglehold, if you save this for you know, those Adaptoids, Exos, or Dreadbots, it'll automatically perform a takedown on those enemies, and those takedowns do count for this ability. So you basically use your ability, and you automatically get a heroic orb back for using your ability, as well as performing a free takedown even on a full health enemy. So very, very good there. Coming over to our ranged attacks, so we don't really use ranged a lot. We can use it, you know, to spread some stun and to spread some particle damage, but it's more of a defensive thing. If you really can't get close to a fight, or maybe you misfired some of your abilities, or you didn't get the orbs that you thought you were going to get, you might have to revert to a ranged play style for maybe a minute or so during an intense fight, just before you can kind of break through the enemy's defenses and get back in. So with that, we actually are going to use rubble. Debris of any size inflicts normal and stun damage over a wide area. So you can see in the little tooltip here, basically turns your ranged attack into an explosion, and it does stun damage as well. So that's a good way to kind of break through enemy defenses. If you do find yourself in a spot where you need to maybe stay back and just huck a few projectiles, I like to go with the smaller projectiles just because they're a little faster. But totally dealer's choice. But what you're going to do here is you're going to be building stun meters in a wide area. So if you kind of throw this, everyone in the vicinity, they might not take a lot of damage from it, but what you want to do is build up their stun meters so you can finally get back in there, or the team can get back in there, start performing takedowns, and really break through the defense. You could also go with bedrock. This one is good too. This kind of makes your small debris act similar to Mjolnir when Thor throws his light attack. It kind of pins them down. This can be nice for taking enemies out of the fight, especially some heavier enemies, or maybe like stiletto riot bots, just enemies that are a pain in the ass to deal with. This can be pretty helpful for the team, but personally, I like rubble better. And the third one down here is also kind of nice. The wrecking ball basically just makes it, when you throw the large debris, it actually just rolls through the ground and just hits everything in its path until it hits a wall or travels a particular distance. This can be nice as well. I just don't really like the large debris, so I prefer to stick with the rubble attack, again, mostly for that stun damage as well. But honestly, this tree, or this little column here, more so than most other columns, has a good amount of diversity. So you can, if you are more comfortable with one of these other skills, definitely go for it. It's not going to hurt the build in any way. The other thing that's useful with rubble is it makes it a little easier to, like, if you're trying to hit a turret, or even when you're fighting like the warbot and you have to kill those vents on its side. This does like a splash damage, so you don't have to be 100% accurate with those throws, and you'll still be able to actually do the damage to kill those. And with those vents on the side, you can actually hit more than one at once with rubble. So coming over to the middle tree here, I go with ranged damage. Nothing in this tree is fantastic. I don't really throw enemies around, so fastball is kind of useless. And then this one, I think the numbers might be a little wrong on this, because it says increased damage by 15% when using large debris, but this one is just 15% to all attacks. So I think they meant to do more than 15 on this one since it's more specialized, but doesn't look like they did. So I don't see any reason to not just use the 15 range damage overall instead of this one. So that's why we're going with that. And then coming over to the third one, I use excavator just for the speed of picking up and throwing things. I don't think any of these other ones, these both kind of apply to actually picking up melee, picking up pieces of rubble and using them as melee weapons, which we don't really do in this build. It's not super relevant. So just having a nice increase to picking up the debris, that can be helpful again if you have to resort to picking up some debris and throwing it in to try to build up some stun bars in tough fights. So coming over to the intrinsic abilities here, Raging Heroics, pretty straightforward, increases charge rate of all heroic meters by 15% when rage is active. So speaks for itself, building up your rage meter, building up your heroic meter while you're in rage. You could, 15% is not a lot, but I did want to stack as much heroic buildup as possible because the build is so focused on your heroic abilities. You could also go with Raging Defense, increases defensive strength by 15. 15% as a defense buff is nothing to scoff at. This one here, extra 10% willpower regen, I don't think that's super relevant. I think having more defense might be a little better than 10% willpower regeneration. But for this build, I like to go with just getting the heroics off cooldown as fast as possible. Coming to the middle tree, so we use increase all damage by 15%. Again, nothing in here is really super helpful for us. You know, increased damage of finishers. We don't really get to finishers too often, so that's not super relevant. And then this one, again, I think they messed up on the numbers because this is 15% when using an enemy as a melee weapon, but this is just 15% to all damage. So there's no reason to not use this one. I think they might have fudged the number on this one. It probably should have been more than 15, but it's not, so we're going with this one here. And then coming over to the last one, I just use an increased amount of intrinsic rage. You can use some of these other ones. Honestly, I don't think this top one, Berserker's Rage, is super useful, and I don't think the initial cost of triggering Rage is even that much at all, so I don't think a reduction there is super necessary. I think just a top off to the amount of Rage is just more helpful in all circumstances. And coming over to the overcharged tree, so increases impact while overcharged by 25%, decreasing the chance enemies will be able to interrupt attacks. So like all of you, I'm sure you don't like getting your attacks interrupted, especially as Hulk. We will also be using power attacks almost exclusively in this build. So those unfortunately do have a little bit of a longer charge up time. So being able to to be uninterrupted is quite nice. Crit chance, you could use it, but again, we're not really a DPS build. We're more of a stunning and element spreading build. So having more crit doesn't help so much. Defensive strength by 15 can be okay. Again, if you're really trying to get a tanky playstyle, you can use this along with this extra 15 for a 30% defense boost while you're in rage. That could make you pretty tanky, but I think for all purposes, I think the chance to kind of not get interrupted by attacks will fit this build quite nice. And then for this middle tree, I love this perk here, increased stun damage while overcharged by 30%. Stun damage is really what we're going for in this build. Again, when we're using power attacks, we're hitting in a wide area. We're hitting a lot of enemies at once. So we're not focused on damage so much. We're focused more on stun. So what you're going to see is, when you're using this, you're going to be really slamming the ground, and all the enemies around you, they'll take some damage, but what they're really going to be doing is, building their stun meters, and before you know it, everyone around you is going to be ready for a takedown, and yourself and the entire team can just clean them up very easily, produce more heroic orbs, and just, blow your way right through the battle. And the thing about overcharge and stun damage, when you actually use your assault heroic, you do get 100% bonus rage. So this does put you directly into overcharge. So if you go barreling into a fight, or use this and perform a takedown on a what is it, the adaptoids or the exos, and then you immediately come out of that with full health and full rage, you're immediately in this overcharge mode. And you got to figure they've also just taken been hit with a takedown, so they're probably on the ground. You've got some time to get it a few hits on them. You're going to absolutely be a beast. They're going to be ready for a takedown, before they can even get back up off the ground. So really, really nice there. And then increase overcharge enemy gained from takedowns by 50%. Same thing, really just because we're going to be building our stun meters and just kind of getting everyone ready for takedowns. This will help us kind of stay in our overcharged rage mode more often. So those are the skills that I pick. I think they really highlight what we're going for with this build, generating orbs, and just making sure that we're really spreading that stun damage in an area of effect that's really going to take down enemies kind of across the board here. Okay, boys, and then last thing I just wanted to go over. So like I said, the gear I have is currently not optimized for Hulk. I keep getting gear pieces that are lower than the current gear I have. It is a known glitch in the game, so a little annoying, but I just wanted to go over some pieces that will be helpful and really what you want to look for in your gear. So starting off with the major artifact, This one's a no-brainer. The Ring of Nebelong. I've recommended this in my other build video as well, and I'm sure I will continue to do so. But really, just for that bountiful perk, increases the amount restored by all orbs by a certain percent. Obviously, that percent goes up as you level up the ring. But this is absolutely ridiculous. It makes you get, you get so much more value out of your heroic orbs. It's not even funny. And like I said, heroic orbs are really the name of the game right now. So this one's just a no-brainer to recommend. As far as perks on your gear, what you really want to look for is on your melee, you really want something that has PIM damage on power attacks. So it's important to have PIM damage, and it's important to have it on power attacks because we're going to be hitting in a wide area. We're going to be using Hulk's, jump slam attack. I think it's, which one is it? This one here, the Earth Smasher. You come down, you hit all enemies in a wide area. That will be affected by power attacks. Give PIM damage. So, you hit that attack, all those enemies are going to be shrunk or very close to shrunk. And then, obviously, Aftershock and Tectonic Fury. These are attacks that we're going to be using quite frequently as kind of our, whether it's single target damage on larger enemies or just getting in a crowd and popping these off. They're going to hit multiple enemies at a time, so we want to make sure that we're spreading PIM damage on those. And the reason we want PIM more than other elements is a couple of different reasons. One, I think PIM is overall the best element in the game. I'm actually going to have another video coming out soon kind of going through the different elements and where they will be useful. But I think PIM is the best overall just because it gives a combination of both offense and defensive capabilities. It makes the enemies take more damage when they're shrunk and also deal less damage. So it's supportive in a way that it's a defense for your team because the enemies will be doing less damage, but also they'll be taking more damage from all sources. So really just helps more than any other element in the game. I wouldn't recommend any other element for Hulk with this build. The other reason is because when enemies are shrunk with PIM, you can actually pick up different enemies. So you can actually pick up adaptoids with Hulk's grab attack while they are shrunk. So that's a really nice thing to have. You can basically pick up these adaptoids, take them out of the fight, which they can be extremely annoying, as everyone knows, and then you can use them as weapons as well. So with the Smackdown ability, if you can actually get 2 of them shrunk, you can take 2 of them right out of the fight, and the team can kind of clean up while you're holding those, so they don't have to worry about them. There is also another cheeky little trick. This actually works on Taskmaster as well. So if you happen to be fighting Taskmaster on the rooftop villain layer, you can actually shrink him with PIM. Once he's shrunk, all you do is you grab him and you throw him off the building, and that will actually skip the entire boss fight. So just kind of a funny little tidbit there. I'm sure that might work on some future bosses as well if they're on a rooftop, but just kind of funny that works on Taskmaster. So definitely PIM damage all the way. I will also recommend that on your ranged gear as well. You can, I personally would prefer to have it on light attacks rather than power attacks, but it really is your preference. Whatever pieces you like to throw. I like to throw the light pieces in kind of rapid succession, but if you like throwing the heavy pieces, again, just make sure that your skills coincide, because there were a few skills that we picked that focus on light light rubble damage versus heavy rubble damage. So just make sure if you do get a piece that has power attacks on PIM damage on power throws, that you switch your skills to compensate for those power throw perks as well. And then other than that, as far as defense, really dealer's choice, whatever defensive perks you like. This monstrous composite is pretty nice, increases willpower regeneration while rage is active by 200%. It is really nice because you will be going into your overcharge via your assault heroic pretty regularly. So it is quite nice to actually have, that ability there. And then for for any type of other support, just anything that gives heroic charge on support heroics, that would be quite nice. Even on assault heroics, really on any heroics, we're going to be activating heroics left and right, so any type of chance to get a heroic charge burst on activating a heroic will be nice. There is also a Hulk specific, I believe it's a heroic piece of gear, but it gives plus 15 damage to all taunted enemies. So that can be extremely nice because obviously we are taunting everyone with our Bone Shaker. So being able to taunt them and then have them, take extra damage, absolutely fantastic. In that regard. But otherwise, just trying to get more heroic charge burst or stun damage as well from our power attacks, that'll all be good. Anything you can get there. And then, coming over to the ISO is really just, again, any charge rate for support heroics. I personally would lean heavy on the support heroics here. The assault heroics, obviously good as well. Ultimate, you probably don't need as much. But it's really that support heroic, being able to just keep everyone taunted at all times and just generate more and more heroic orbs. The more we can keep that off cooldown, the better. But that is really it, guys. Like I said, I'll do a follow-up video to this build when I really have all the gear in the right place. Unfortunately, no amount of grinding right now seems to help me get better gear on Hulk. But eventually we will have that. So if you do have kind of a Hulk build or some nice pieces of gear, let me know down in the comments below what you have and what you found useful. But again, just some final takeaways. Really the point here, we come in, we activate our Bone Shaker, we use our heroic ultimate clap, just throw down heroic orbs all over the place for the team. And then when we're not doing that, we're really just using our power attacks, spreading PIM damage and stunning enemies across the board. And then we're grabbing enemies, whether that be, the adaptoids when they're shrunk, or just any enemy that can be grabbed. We're using our power attacks with those as well, taking them out of the fight, helping our team in any way we can. And that's really it. As far as stat ratings, I would really just go for defense and heroic rating. Try to prioritize those, obviously, because enemies will be taunted. They're going to be coming after you, so having more health, more armor, that would be nice as well. And then heroic rating, definitely go for valor for the heroic effectiveness, and then intensity as well for that stun. The stun is really good on this build, so having a really high stun, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how helpful that will be in tough fights. But anyway, that's all I've got for you guys. I hope you liked it. If you do, be sure to subscribe for more build guides and more content overall. Be sure to follow me on Twitch as well and join the Discord. Links in the description. But with that, that's all I got. Take it easy, guys.